Hi everybody, and thanks for stopping by. Today we are in for a treat. This replay features the Fletcher Tier 9 USN destroyer, captained by the one, the only, Pope Shizzle. There's been a lot of talk recently about how the detection changes in patch 0.6.3 are going to ruin the USN destroyer line by removing their ability to stealth fire. Specifically, there's been a good deal of sentiment about how the Soviet destroyers will be the only good ones left. Now, I play and love the Soviet destroyers, and there are many moments in this game where the Fletcher does things only a United States destroyer could possibly do. So I'm going to keep score. Tell me at the end of the battle if this ship line is really obsolete or whatever. Now, if you take a look at this battle as things are evolving in the beginning stages, Pope Shizzle's team is going to be taking somewhat of a defensive posture. Most of the ships are staying fairly close to the capture zone, defending the base, sort of forming a perimeter around it. And nobody's been spotted yet, but the middle seems a little bit exposed, I suppose. And so trying to get a little bit of scouting in here and just spot some ships to see where they're going to be heading. The Fletcher, of course, can get down to 5.8 kilometer detection, so doing something like this is fairly safe. Even if you get spotted because somebody pushed in pretty aggressively, you're going to be able to disengage fairly easily if you haven't begun firing. So looks like things are shaping up, getting some initial spots on the larger ships, and just throw some torpedoes into this gap here. It's a very easy place for an enemy destroyer to sneak through and cause all sorts of trouble, so why not put some torpedoes in the water just in case somebody tries to come through that little gap there. So we're already starting to see a little bit of a group pushing north from the east, and kind of keep your eye on that because it's going to be significant later on. But in the meantime, still not seeing anything coming through the middle here, and here we have a very first instance of a USN destroyer being awesome. No way on earth a Tashkent could have made that turn and not just crashed into the island. Rudder shift and turning circle on these destroyers is frankly amazing, and detection did not nerf that one bit, so the maneuverability is unquestionably superior to just about any other ship in the game. So as things are developing, we're starting to see that Pope Shizzle's team is again forming a ring around the base, whereas the enemy team looks like it's grouped off into two separate clumps, one that's coming up the west and one that's pushing up the east between the two big island sections. So right now, there's not a whole lot that he has to fire at, but his torpedoes have just come off cooldown, and figures let's throw some into this general area here. Now, if you play this game and don't really have a sense of the scale, it's really easy to see these tiny little pixel boats and think of torpedoes as little toothpick-sized things that come out of little toothpick-sized tubes on little tiny motorboats. But if you've ever seen these things next to a human being, they're ginormous, and they're really expensive. I mean, a lot of the ordnance in this game is expensive. Even the shells are not particularly cheap. Now, the captain of the Missouri, I say this just to mention that the captain of the Missouri is well aware of that and sees a bunch of torpedoes potentially going to waste, and knowing that they're valuable, decides to turn right into them. I think that's, I mean, it was the right thing to do, really. Like, otherwise they were just going to fizzle out and go to the bottom of the seafloor. All that money would have gone down the drain, so no sense in letting that go to waste. Now, score number 2 for the USN destroyers firing over that island. 10-kilometer range, there is no way that Soviet 130mm cannons would make it over that hill and still be able to hit the target. So, yeah, definitely being this close to an island, again, you're doing USN destroyer stuff here. And it's tremendously to his advantage because he's not getting spotted by taking these shots, and lobbing the shells over that island is giving him an opportunity to do damage that you wouldn't be able to do in most other ships. Um, the USN destroyers, as well as ships like the Flint and Atlanta that use the same guns, have a very slow shell velocity, and that can be disadvantageous. Well, I can't talk today. That can be disadvantageous sometimes, but in situations where you're up against an island, it can actually work out for you pretty well. So, enemy Fletcher spotted, very close range. Throws some torpedoes out and prepares to open fire. The Fletcher decides that doesn't feel like having a knife fight right now, turns out, and retreats. So gets a few shots on target there, but hides behind the island, goes dark, and proceeds to creep around and hopefully get a few more shots in once he gets to this gap. Relights the target. Still within range. So, snapshot. And that is one more point for the USN destroyers, clearing that island. Again, no way you could do that in most of their ships. And manages to get 3 shells on target. So, now these are still what you might call the early stages of the game, and our hero is already at 61k, but he is just getting warmed up. Friendly team has already lost 2 destroyers, which is a bit unfortunate, and so bit of a uphill struggle at this point. However, the Fletcher clears the island with his engines knocked out, and there's no getting away from this situation. Or is there? Like I was saying about the Fletcher's incredibly good detection range, going dark is, well, pretty easy to do if you're paying attention, but somehow he gets lit up again. Oh, he fires. He might have spotted that torpedo and realized he had nothing to lose. So yeah, well-placed torpedo takes out the enemy, and the ship kills are even again. So things aren't looking too bad unless you look at the minimap and realize that there is a very large clump of ships still pushing up around the 8 line straight toward the friendly base. So Pope Shizzle's going to switch over here and try and assist this Iowa, who's being ambushed by a Mahan. The Mahan has popped his smoke, disappears, and has fired what looks like 2 racks of torpedoes. However, the Mahan has 1 centerline rack of torpedoes and then 1 on each side. So potentially there's still a set of torpedoes that could come out of that ship at any moment now, assuming he's able to get himself turned around and launch the other set. The Belfast is charging right in, but Pope Shizzle is taking a little bit of a conservative angle here. Doesn't want to charge straight in, just in case, again, there's another set of torpedoes coming, maybe toward that Iowa. So the Belfast has both hydro and radar, and really should be able to help out in spotting that Mahan. Right about now, yeah, we we see Pope Shizzle requesting as much. Briefly spots the enemy destroyer with very little health left. Doesn't manage to land that shot, but yeah, if either of those ships can get 1 more good salvo on them, they should be able to take that destroyer out and even the ship count out once again. So if there's 1 good ship to do that, it should be the Belfast, but still haven't spotted the destroyer yet. But as soon as the Belfast clears the smoke, should be close enough, and there he is. So shells out. Belfast manages to miss every single one, but Pope Shizzle does not. And there we go. So one larger ship and 2 destroyers for each team have been taken out right now. Begins firing at the Pensacola and then decides to hold his fire. He got spotted once he cleared that small island, and decides that at that range might actually be better just to go dark and not keep shooting his guns. So I'm going to give a point to the Soviets for that one, because probably could have gotten another good 3 or 4 salvos out of that situation with some accurate shell fire. 10 kilometers is getting to the point where it's a little bit dicey trying to hit something as quick as a cruiser with USN shells that have such a long time to target. So He decides he's just going to go dark and address this group of ships pushing very aggressively up through the north. And he made the right call, because take a look at the minimap. You can't even read anything. There's just a giant blob of orange on the map moving north and straight into the base. Speaking of the base, if you take a look, you'll notice that it is already being captured, even though none of the spotted ships are actually inside the base yet. So that tells you that the Yugumo is already there. So besides all the ships that are spotted, there's also a destroyer in the base. There's some work to be done. Begins popping his smoke, and I'm thinking, dude, you're not going to even clear the island before your smoke runs out. Oh, this is a United States destroyer. One more point. The smoke goes forever. And even here, he keeps pushing forward. I'm cringing because, again, my instincts are honed to Soviet destroyer smoke, which is, well, it's not USN destroyer smoke, let's put it that way. Keeps pushing forward, his smoke keeps going because it goes forever. Throws out torpedoes at this North Carolina, but does not open fire. And you can learn from this. That North Carolina is driving very slowly, broadside in a straight line, 4 kilometers away from a smoke cloud with his guns pointed God knows where. The last thing Pope Shizzle wants to do is get his attention and encourage him to turn in. Now, the next North Carolina is in a similar predicament, but he just didn't happen to be the ship that Pope Shizzle chose to fire his torpedoes at. I'm sure he's noticed that there's a destroyer here, and in fact, you can see his guns swinging around in the general direction of our hero, so he is well aware that there is a destroyer sitting here, causing trouble. Blind fires into the smoke, fortunately misses all of his shells, and now is one of the more baffling moments in this replay, where he has seen his friendly North Carolina get completely demolished by a set of torpedoes some amount of time ago, and decides therefore that after a minute and a half, it would be a fantastic idea to come to a complete stop right in front of a smoke cloud 5 kilometers away. I have no explanation for what's going on in his head right now, but I'll tell you what's going on in Pope Shizzle's head, and that is, let me kill this dude. So, sends his torpedoes, and, well, I'm speechless. I mean, you know what's going to happen here. So, it looks like we've taken what looked like a pretty desperate situation with all these ships steaming right up the gap into the base, and thinned out the herd enough that the rest of the battleships left there are going to be able to deal with who's left. Now, look at the position of the Tirpitz. Speaking of things I just have no explanation for, the Tirpitz is at A4 right now. Your explanation of that is as good as mine. I have no clue what's going on with that, but regardless, he has now thinned out that eastern group to the point that it can be easily managed by the ships that are left to defend it. Now, have you ever had matches where you think you've heroically won the battle, only to discover that your work has only just begun? Yeah, so took care of that group, and now look at the mini-map. The enemy ships that are in the middle of the map are now joining up and forming yet another blob of nastiness that's going to be pushing straight up the middle of the map into the base. Who's left to hold them at bay? Well, Pope Shizzle. So, yeah, sometimes 158k just isn't enough. They are down a ship, and there is a destroyer on the flank, still somehow a Nagato sitting in the base, not getting killed by the majority of his remaining team. Begins taking some shots at this destroyer. However, he's taking fire from that group that's pushing up the middle. They're not focusing the battleships, they're focusing the destroyer, which is good play on their part. That's what they should do. And yeah, he's starting to take some shell fire from multiple ships. So he's going to chill out here. Again, this Nagato should have been dead a long time ago, but whatever. Turpitz, the Turpitz finally does something, and shots come in from left field and take out the target. So ships are even once again, but we have a Turpitz who decided that hanging out on the A line was a good idea. Not sure how confident we're going to be in that. And we have a very damaged Scharnhorst, a very damaged North Carolina, and a reasonably damaged Iowa left. So although the ship count might be looking good, the HP pool is telling a different story. Now, look in chat. Pope Shizzle is playing like a team player. He says, Iowa, slow down. Pops his smoke, turns in toward the Iowa, and if the Iowa had any sense whatsoever, it would have hit the brakes and would have been already in a smoke cloud by now. Instead, he decided to turn sideways in front of Missouri's 16-inch guns, and that happened to him. So, yeah, didn't go so well. However, take a look at this Pensacola. This is another lesson that can be learned. Mostly full health, doing pretty decent. Right? Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? Bow in. Narrow profile. Should be able to avoid some shells. Should be able to... Oh, yeah. Oops. Now, the lesson I was going to say that you should learn from this is, remember that Iowa that just got blapped and taken down to low enough health that if you looked at him the wrong way, he was going to blow up? Well, the Iowa did the majority of that damage to the Pensacola. So I don't care if you have 10 HP left, your guns still shoot. So enemy needed to take out the target, and they failed to do so. Now, I've been yakking a lot, so I hope you've noticed the ridiculous kill count that's been racked up here. That is 7 kills. That's not too shabby, and we've gone from being in a pretty desperate situation to a pretty easy win at this point. Only the one enemy destroyer left, and Fletcher versus Yugumo. Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy win. So yeah, this is an excellent game, and let's take a look what the tally looks like. Yeah, the U.S. and destroyers have a lot going for them, stealth fire or not. However, let's just clear up some minor details. Soviet destroyers are awesome looking and fast and have very cool names. And oh yeah, did I forget if I already said they're really awesome looking? Oh, that's a shame. I really thought the U.S. was going to win this one. It was really close. So good try. Keep at it, and you'll get there someday. So again, this is just a matter of mopping up. The Yugumo actually manages to get a couple really good shots in here. He's not a bad shot, but he knows it's over, so might as well scoop in a couple more 1,000 hit points worth of damage on the way out. Some supporting fire coming from behind Pope Shizzle, but yeah, Fletcher just has the DPS at this range that there's no way you're going to get away. So torpedoes miss, shells out, and there's kill number 8. So what a fantastic match. Well played, hard carry, ton of fun to watch. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't already, hit subscribe to keep seeing more videos like this. Have a great day, and happy boating.